From SBI's Executive Briefing Center in Dallas, Texas, the most watched and listened to content in B2B sales and marketing, it's the SBI Podcast with your host, Matt Shares.
Welcome to SBI TV, a weekly show dedicated to helping you make your number. Today, we are going to explore best practices and why outbound matters. I'm your host, Matt Shares. I'm the CEO of SBI. Joining us today in the studio is Eric Quanstrom, and Eric is the CMO at Science Technologies. The way to think about Science Technologies is they are a people as a service company. They serve the marketing and sales departments. And what do? They test and experiment with their clients to find the perfect demand generation formula that produces all the results for the sales teams to develop long-term relationships. So, Eric, first off, welcome to the show. Welcome to the studio.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to see you, man. So, as a way of getting started, maybe tell us a little bit about you and your background and kind of run to Science, and then tell us a little bit about Science and how the audience might want to think about what you all do.
Sure. You can think of me as somewhat of a lifelong marketer. I've been in the space quite a while, leading marketing teams of various sizes, mainly at venture-backed companies, fast growth startups, if you will.
Yep.
And I joined Science a couple of years ago, and it's been a fantastic ride. Science is a little over 3.5 years old. Cool. We just crossed the 400 employee mark.
Congratulations.
So yeah, we've been growing pretty quickly. And, you know, I think one of the reasons for that is that we provide a really necessary service for companies that are looking to go to market in a really hyper-effective way, you know, with strong ROI case to be made and really winning the right logos, you know, why outbound matters is you call your shot. You know, you basically say, here's the clients I want to win, and I'm going to take the deliberate steps to go out and, you know, secure conversations and start sales cycles with those companies.
Very good. And then if you think about, or if the audience is thinking about Science, 400 people, growing super fast, I would think about using you if I was a sales leader or perhaps a marketing leader saying, I'm not getting my team into the right conversations with the right people.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that people come to us all the time. And I think that, you know, outbound isn't an island. Outbound also feeds into a lot of the other activities that you'd be doing in your go-to-market. Yeah. At the end of the day, you're raising awareness. You're just doing it at a one-to-one level. And I think that that's a really key part of, you know, again, why outbound matters. If I take a quick step back, one of the things that I think every business leader, sales leader, and marketing leader face down is, you know, where's my next new revenue coming from? And at the end of the day, like, there's a ton of activities, ton of investments that you can make. If you're not considering going direct, then you're really missing out. Largely because what we've studied is all of the fastest growth companies, frankly, on the planet in the B2B space are doing so.
Yep. And
they've really bought in kind of to the idea that, you know, prospecting and having it as its own sales development function is really good return.
Yep. So before Eric and I get started, if you're watching or you're listening out there and you want to make sure that you catch all of our weekly shows and have access to the content library, if you're an iPhone user, you just download the SBI app in the App Store, search for Sales Benchmark Index, and then you can use the iPhone notifications to get the content as you want it for your commute, your travel, or you can even have us keep you company on your workout. So, we've heard for many years that cold calling is dead, in quotation marks, right? CMOs have adjusted their budgets away from outbound, and they fund more inbound content creation, field marketing, pay-per-click, advocate marketing, and other demand gen methods. But has this been a mistake? Eric and I are going to get into this, and we're going to have a pretty good debate. So this first segment, outbound is the new normal. So targeted outbound is what actually drives inbound, right? But what comes first, Eric? And if I'm a sales leader or I'm a CMO watching this show, which is about 80% of our viewers, and they're wrestling with that, how should they think about it as a just normalized definition?
Well, I think that any marketing leader, and I'll start there because being a CMO, I think I can speak somewhat authoritatively to how myself and some of my peers think. I don't think that any marketer is going to abandon inbound channels anytime soon. Right. There's too much good stuff, and there's just too much foundational elements that you have to put in place to run your business successfully. Being found on Google, having content that emphasizes what's great about your brand, your areas of promise, that will never go away, and that'll never change. That said, one of the kind of fundamental flaws, if you will, or the fly in the ointment with inbound is you get what you get. I have no control over who comes to my website via Google, via other inbound tactics, and raises their hand. And as such, that kind of deluge, if you will, often requires qualification, requires sorting. It should require a buffer between anything that marketing is going to pass on to sales, right? I would argue that's the province of a sales development rep. But more importantly, getting the right customers, the right logos, the must-win clients onto your roster may or may not ever happen with inbound tactics. And so, to be fairly pithy about it, with inbound you get what you get, with outbound you get what you want. And taking this deliberate, very organized, very detailed approach to pursuing your targeted ideal clients is a strategy that I think most businesses are wise to consider.
So then, as I think about key methods that you've seen work and what tactics have worked to make outbound successful, talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think overall, as a rule, and something that we preach all the time within our organization is if you're not prospect focused, you're dead. You'll literally be part of the great noise that exists out there in the space, and you'll never break through. I think that, as a rule, as a first cut, the idea is really to understand at really a persona level, what are the needs, goals, challenges of the people that I'm reaching out to, so that I can have somewhat of an effective conversation. I've got to pass the relevancy bar first and foremost before I do anything else with outbound.
If you think about this sort of, this industry stampede, right, away from outbound, and how people are thinking about, well, is it inbound? Is it outbound? Is it both? Is it ABM? Is what Eric's describing just, high velocity ABM because I'm going after a bunch, like in the spirit of noise, and people that don't have the marketing depth that you do of a couple of decades of getting after it? Help us think through that.
Yeah, well, I think that number one, maybe I'm slightly disagreeing with you because outbound is anything but dead. The way I see it is target audiences generally have the 3 Bs in common, right? They're all busy, they're all bombarded, and generally they're bewildered by a lot of choices for products and services
I love that.
In the market. So again, taking a very strong, another B, taking a strong bias towards an audience that is likely to be in that state means that you have to be kind of answering a bunch of questions right off the bat. Why me? Why now? Why should I care? And when you backtrack that into any of your messaging, any of your campaigns, that's really where success lies. And so designing experiences, and that's really the way I like to think about it, maybe a little bit of marketer speak there. My sales colleagues would probably say, how do you get to the point? How do you drive value?
No, I gotcha. That makes complete sense.
But ultimately, designing an experience that says, how do I open a conversation successfully with people that have real goals, needs, and wants? And I always like to say this too. I think about prospects in general. Most of the people that are companies that we represent at Science, as well as our own internal, us drinking our own champagne and going to market with outbound, the vast majority of people that we're reaching out to are C-level titles, VP-level titles, even director-level titles at bigger organizations. These people didn't land on the top by falling there. They climbed and grew. These are ambitious, aspirational people with agendas. They're always looking for an edge. The ability to discover what that edge might be and speak that language will almost always be interesting and have psychological triggers and hooks for that audience. The ability to deliver something that's interesting and package it, again, in the persona's own kind of language. How do you talk to me about things that are relevant to me?
And as I think about sort of wrapping this segment of outbound is the new normal, it never went away, but just, I guess, the importance of it. A couple of things you said that I would emphasize for the audience. First is designing experiences. that's new for me as a mental model to say outbound with a spear where you're saying, I got to get to Eric versus I'm designing an experience for Eric. He's a CEO in a company that I have a targeted solution for. The experience might be a series of things that I'm doing via a series of outbound channels. It's not just the smile and dial that, in my first inside sales job 20 years ago, or more than that, that I did. So is that the way to think about designing the experience? And where science comes in is you stand up the people and the team.
That's right.
And the motion, if you will. Is that right?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And that motion is very inclusive of things like messaging and the channel and the research and the targeting. I think that you really always want to have this idea of going one-to-one, you owe it to your audience to be hyper-targeted.
Yep.
Otherwise, why do it?
Yep.
And you say smile and dial. That is an experience delivered. It may just not be the most cogent or relevant to the person on the other end of the line.
Very good.
And I think that that's really where kind of like the entire level up has to occur.
Okay. Eric, first off, man, thank you for coming in.
You bet.
Highly impactful and good education for the audience. So I think Eric left us with many insights relative to how to think about outbound and obviously the effectiveness of science and the run that they're on. So for those of you that have perhaps said cold calling is dead and are operating in an old mental model, I believe Eric has shifted your focus and maybe given you a new way to think about it. As always, you have a choice where you put your eyes and ears, and I really appreciate that you would tune in. I appreciate the continued support. And as always, I wish you good luck as you try and make your number.
This has been the SBI Podcast. For more information on the studio, SBI's Executive Briefing Center, our team, or to schedule a workshop, please visit salesbenchmarkindex.com.